So, most of us spend most of our waking time in organizations, and that's like half of our day, half of our waking time goes into work. So that's actually a lot of time. And yet, the experience that we have at work doesn't seem to be very satisfying or purposeful for most of us. So, in a recent study from the Gallup, no, not so recent, actually 3 years ago or some years ago, the Gallup Employment Engagement Index found that 63% of workers are disengaged at work. And there's another interesting number, 13% are even actively disengaged. And I don't know what that means, maybe checking out your brains at the door when you enter your company. So 3/4 of workers worldwide don't feel engaged at work. And that's actually a terrible loss in creativity and productivity and I guess also money, right? And at the end of the day. So uh, let me tell you a little bit about myself. As was already mentioned, I studied philosophy, and actually I never saw myself in the world of work really, and especially I didn't see myself working in a big company. So as a socially accepted way of procrastinating that decision, I actually studied philosophy for 8 years, and so I was really in no rush, right? So and people would ask me, okay, so what do you do with philosophy degree? I said, well, become a taxi driver, right? So yeah, that was funny, I thought, but my parents didn't think that was funny, right? So they would rather see me get a job, like a real job. And today I want to talk to you about a different way of working. I brought you my elaborate slide set, which consists of one slide. And the main topic today that I want to talk about is working like a grown-up. If you want to work like a grown-up, you need to truly distribute authority. So what does that mean? What does that working like a grown-up mean? Here's what it not means. It does not mean being bossed around, being told what to do. It does not mean complaining at your manager and hoping that they will solve your problems for you. It does not mean to work in this parental dynamic. The boss is my daddy, and he takes care of me or tells me what to do, and I'm kind of in the childlike position. It's very magic. You enter a company, and all that you do outside the company, like making decisions on your own and acting autonomously, just suddenly magically disappears, vanishes, right? You enter the door and you say, okay, tell me what to do, let me collect my paycheck. So that's pathetic in my world. So I never wanted to be like that. So not working like a grown-up means also, playing office politics, leaning on personal relationships to get the work done instead of clear agreements around who does what and who has the authority to decide what. Instead, we play office politics, we try to influence each other just to get the work done. It should be in the interest of the company to make those decisions much clearer. And let me take a sip here. Okay, so that's what not working like a grown-up looks like. What, on the contrast, what does like working like a grown-up? How might that look like? So in my view, it looks like working on a peer-to-peer level, like really on eye level, not like in this weird power dynamic that's always going on in the workplace. It means that you hold each other accountable as coworkers. So if there's no central manager to control everything, then you need to each hold each other as co-workers accountable for the outcomes of your work. It means working in a clear structure that tells you exactly who is the authority to decide what, and if you don't know that, that you can change that and bring it to clarity, that you have pathways to do that. And, you know, it comes down to this. The key change that we need is in the current environment, everything that is not how you say, everything that is explicitly forbidden. Well, let me start again. I'm a little nervous. So yeah, in the current environment, in a traditional company, everything that is not explicitly allowed is assumed to be forbidden. So and what we need to change here is that it's the other way around, that everything is allowed unless it is explicitly forbidden. That's the way to liberate work. That's the way to liberate people to truly take on their work and become creative, become engaged at work. And there is a way of doing that. Actually, the idea might sound radical to get rid of managers and bosses was actually happening. There's a whole movement there of self-management. And if you, for example, look at the works of Frederic Laloux, he wrote an interesting book called Reinventing Organizations. There's tons of examples of companies that are doing this for decades. They are working with self-management, meaning there's nobody bossing people around. People are working like grown-ups. And today I want to talk to you about one example of self-management, which is called Holacracy. It's one example, but a very poignant one, very interesting one. And Holacracy was developed 2006 by a guy called Brian Robertson. He's American, and he was sick and tired of working in traditional management hierarchies. You know, he had enough of it. He said, "Okay, I'm going to do better. I'm going to create my own software company," which he did. So now he was the boss, and the irony of the whole thing was that now he got to experience the same shit just from the other side. You know, people would come to him expecting him to solve problems for him, and people would blame him for not responding in time and so on. So he said, "No, that can't be it either. I've got to find a better way." And he did trial and error in his company. You know, the saying from Edison, you know, I found 10,000 ways of how not to make a light bulb. You know, that's what they were doing there, right? So they're failing fast, and they were only keeping what was worth keeping in terms of practice. And what they kept, they condensed into what's called the Holacracy Constitution. And this constitution just contains all the rules of this alternative power structure. Holacracy is a wholesale replacement of the traditional management hierarchy. It's an alternative model of running a company. And when a company decides to go down that path, the first thing, or one of the first things that should happen, is that the current CEO or power holder or board, they have to sign the Constitution. And signing the Constitution is signaling to the environment something similar that signing the Constitution back then and a few hundred years ago meant in political terms, that when the monarch signed the Constitution of the nation state, hey, I'm no longer above the law. I'm being held accountable by the same laws. I play by the same rules as everyone else. There's no power differential here. I have to use the same mechanism to influence the organization as anyone else. And so this is a powerful signal, and this starts off the company on that journey. Holacracy is a practice, and it helps you to distribute authority. So now let's look at that. Distributing authority. So distributing authority what does that mean? Let me contrast that by looking at the traditional management hierarchy, which is a delegation of authority. So you have the power pyramid in the classical organization, and power cascades down from the top. And every rank below that just has gets power, but it's only borrowed power. So any superior level can always jump in and undo whatever decision is made on the lowest level, on the lower level. So that's kind of it's kind of like saying, okay, you can drive the car, but I reserve the right to just jang your wheel whenever I feel like it's necessary. And that's actually dangerous, and sometimes it's not working because when the high level steps in, for example, they don't know all the details of the customer and so on. They're just too far removed from the complexities. So ideally, decision making should be more decentralized, right? So it shouldn't be centralized in all these points, because when you centralize power, if you centralize power, then if you give people too much power to monarch-like powers, and what they then do is they produce royal screw-ups, because if they fail, the failure is bad because they really don't know the details of the situation. So if you want to work like grown-up, you need to truly distribute authority. And Holacracy distributes authority by giving you clear roles. So imagine the purpose of the company. Let's say Google as an example, because they actually have a pretty clear purpose, which is reads something like organizing the world's information and making it universally accessible and useful, something like that. And that's actually a pretty clear purpose statement, which is great because it orients the work towards that goal. Every role in the organization should work towards that goal, right? So in Holacracy, you divide up the work that's needed for doing the purpose in what's called roles, organizational roles. And roles are like uniforms that you wear on behalf of the organization. You can take them on, you can wear them, and then once you're in the role, you express whatever is needed to express organizationally. So these roles in Holacracy come with a clear purpose and accountabilities. The purpose tells you what part of the overall purpose of the company this role is empowering, and the accountabilities tell you what can be explicitly expected from that role. For example, let's say a marketing role. Marketing role with the purpose of making our brand known to the market. And the accountabilities being creating ad designs or creating ad campaigns or posting to social media, something like that. And the cool thing about having a purpose and accountability fleshed out like that, it gives the person, the role filler, the authority to do anything they think is needed to express the purpose of that role. Here's where the engagement comes in. Here's where the creativity comes in. And they're not being told what to do. They're being asked to actively dream into the future of that role. What's the potential of that role? How can I personally, by filling that role, leave my mark on the company? How can I engage this role? And so you give them a lot of authority to make decisions. They don't have to ask for permission from anyone. Remember, in Holacracy, everything is allowed that's not explicitly forbidden. There's only two places where you find things that are forbidden. And one is the rules of the Constitution, and the other is what's called the governance records of the company. I'll explain to you what governance means in a second. So as a role filler, you are asked, so imagine this, we actually have a word for this in Holacracy. It goes like, be a Ferrari. So if you have the road is clear in front of you and there's nothing that holds you back, no need to ask for permission. You can just go, drive. You don't need to wait or get consensus or anything. You can just act. And that may create some tensions for somebody else. Tensions is an important term in Holacracy because This is an operating system, organizational operating based on processing tensions. And tensions are the fuel of the company. Tensions signal the gap between what is and what could be. And that between that gap, that's where the magic happens, right? So do you know a tensionless state? It's called death. We don't want that for organizations, right? So we want organizations that where all the people in the organizations are able to process tensions. First of all, humans always feel the difference of what could be, what could be better. But in conventional organizations, they usually don't have the pathways to process that. Holacracy gives you the tools to do that. And one way to do that is, okay, let's go back to the Ferrari example. So imagine there's like, an organization full of Ferraris, everybody's driving fast. That's cool, right? Well, it's cool until, you want to cross the street and there's a Ferrari rushing by. It's like, whoa. And you say, okay, maybe you want to put up a stop sign. And the way you do that in Holacracy is by going to a governance meeting. And in that governance meeting, you can create a policy. Anyone can propose a limitation on somebody else, just to protect the company, right? So and then the other role also has the opportunity to make an objection against that if needed. And then there's a clear process that's being facilitated by a so-called facilitator that helps you to tease out the argument and reach a conclusion. It's called integration. And that integration is powerful because it all the warning signals are being integrated. It's not that you don't want to improve one side of the street only to make things worse on the other side. So this process helps us to do that, and it gives you the capability to rewire the DNA of the organization. You actually are allowed to redraw the map of the authorities of the company. Anyone can do that. Anyone has a voice in governance meeting. Every role filler of a circle can participate in that meeting. Okay, so self-management, let's look at the truly. What does it mean to truly distribute authority? So truly has to do with the trust. The trust is somewhat baked into the rules of the Constitution because self-management only works if you trust that people actually can be trusted. So it really comes down to that. Do you trust your employees that they act on behalf of the company or not? And yeah, because think of this. If you imagine you yourself create a company and you grow a startup, at some point you will have to let go of being the one power holder and just distribute authority. So how would you do that? And would you trust your colleague to make good decisions? Because whether you trust them, if you don't trust them, they will display exactly that behavior. And if you do trust them, they will also live up to that expectation. So whether you think they cannot be trusted or you think that they can be trusted, you're right. So which shall it be? In my case, I ended up in a self-managed company, and finally I'm employed. My parents can rejoice. Thank you very much.